All right, looks like we're live. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Austin Peterson here, former presidential candidate for the Libertarian Party. Thanks so much for tuning in to our special show today. As you can see, we're going to be doing a live call-in show, so if you guys are interested in asking me questions today, I've got my Google Voice number set up right there, so you guys, if you want to give me a call and ask me anything that you'd like, politics related would be preferable, but if you have other burning questions or things that you'd like to talk about, feel free to do that. You will be live on the show, so we will hear you on the microphone that I've got attached to my jacket here. So ask me anything. Looks like we've got our first call from New York. All right, let me just go ahead and put you out on the line. Hello, caller, what's your name?
To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail, press 2.
All right, let's...
To accept, press 1.
Hello, this is Austin. You're live. Who am I speaking with?
You are from Brooklyn, New York?
Yes, and what's your question?
So I'm really curious. I know you've answered so many times, but why do you support Gary Johnson? He's not really a libertarian on so many issues.
It's a good...
It's something that bothers me.
Okay, good question. I'll answer it off the air. All right, thanks very much for that call. So the question is, why do I support Gary Johnson? Well, the thing is that you have to take a look at all of the variables at play in this election. So the question is what are really your goals? And if you think that that a vote for Gary Johnson is wasted, well, you might not understand how the Electoral College works. See, I've been working for a long time with the Libertarian Party to try and advance libertarian ideas because I think that it's time that we have more voices in the debate. Right now, what really bothers me is that we have these two mainstream parties that don't represent my ideals almost at all whatsoever. There are very few Republicans or Democrats. Oh, and if you're calling, I'll go ahead. You'll have to just keep trying because as soon as I answer the questions, then I can take the calls in that order as they come in. But I see Gary Johnson as the most libertarian of all of the candidates that are running. That includes Evan McMullin, Jill Stein, and certainly much more so than Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton. You have to take a look at the guy's record in New Mexico. One, that's a big story right there. He's done a lot of good in his home state as governor. And you also have to take a look at his platform. If you haven't read Gary Johnson's platform, you really need to do a little bit more research into it because the guy is talking about eliminating 5 cabinet level positions. He's talking about eliminating the IRS. I mean, which candidate? I mean, not even Evan McMullin is talking about getting rid of the IRS. I mean, this is really what I would like to see. So the thing is you should support a candidate that's starting to come your way on your ideals. Also, and most importantly, I made a promise that I would support the nominee of my party. And I did that because I didn't have a problem with the candidates that were running because I knew that any of the candidates that I thought could credibly win the nomination of my party would be good candidates to spread the ideas of libertarianism. Now, is Gary Johnson a perfect messenger? No, of course not. But am I? No, I've got my own flaws as well. If I had won the nomination of the party, there would have been all kinds of people who had said, why would you support Austin Peterson? He's not a real libertarian because of the NAP or because of abortion or something like that. So there's always something to criticize about every candidate, but I think that if we really want to try and break open the two-party duopoly, then a vote for Gary Johnson is one of the best votes that you can make this year. So I support Gary Johnson in this election, and that's who I'm going to vote for. All right, looks like we've got another call coming in. Hold on just a moment. Let's see. Hello, who am I speaking with? All right, Michael, so what is your question?
Well, I was wondering if you were using, what influence you currently have to spread the message of minarchism, would you be willing to put together sort of like a constitutional convention to develop the idea of a minarchist form of government to iron out the details in the event of, sort of a goal for people to aim for in government or people running for office, what would be agreeable goals?
That's a great idea. I'll answer your question off air. Thanks for your call. So the question is, would I be willing to call together something like a convention of states? Some people are pushing this idea that we need to have an Article 5 convention. And an Article 5 convention in the Constitution basically would, if a majority of the states, 3/4 of the states, decide to hold an Article 5 convention, an Article 5 convention would essentially allow people to, the delegates, to rewrite the Constitution of the United States. So if you're talking about a constitutional convention specifically, I'll say this, that I think that there are a lot of dangers in that because, of course, libertarians are not in power, so they could get rid of the Second Amendment, and there's a lot of problems that could be involved with doing that because if they start rewriting the Constitution, we could lose things like the First Amendment. All right, we got another caller here. Okay, looks like they dropped off of the line. But I'll just continue what I was saying earlier. If you wanted to have like a minarchist convention, that's actually not a bad idea. Of course, for every one minarchist, there is 100 anarchists because most people have an idea of what anarchy is. They may have the wrong idea what anarchy is, but they have a general idea of what anarchy is. But a minarchist, nobody knows who we are. So it would probably be the kind of thing that we'd have to hold in the back of a pub with you and anybody that you could bring along. There just really aren't a lot of us. This is why we have to do things like work with a Libertarian Party, with people that may not see eye to eye on a lot of different issues, but who see eye to eye with us on lots of issues. Hello, who am I speaking with?
Press 1.
All right.
Send a voicemail.
This Google Voice thing is tough to work out, guys. Sorry that it's
To
a
accept, press 1.
All
To
right.
send a voice. Okay, goodbye.
I'm saying to accept good, to accept. It's just not, it's not working. Just keep trying, guys. So anyways, if we wanted to have our own minarchist conference, we certainly could, but we wouldn't necessarily have the numbers that I think we would need in order for us to really push policy forward. As minarchists, people who believe in very limited government, I mean, a minarchist is actually someone who believes in less government than a classical liberal, for example. A classical liberal would be someone perhaps like Friedrich Hayek, who argues that that there does need to be some form of a social safety net. Like Gary Johnson would be classified perhaps as a classical liberal, right? Whereas a minarchist is someone who's going to go even further and is going to say something like, oh, you know, we don't even need a social safety net. Hello, who am I speaking with? Hello, are you there?
The voicemail, press 2.
Hello?
Hi, Austin. How's it going?
Hey, great. Who am I speaking with?
Rob from New Jersey.
Hey, Rob from New Jersey. Thanks for calling in. What's your question for me today?
No problem. So my question is, as the Libertarian Party grows, do you see yourself running again in 2020?
Thanks very much for that question. I'll answer that off air. All right, so every day, man, somebody's like, Austin, are you going to run again in 2020? Well, here's the thing. Let me just explain to you guys. The reason why I ran this time is not because I was like, oh, I'm so amazing. I'm definitely qualified to be president of the United States. The reason why I ran this year is because I knew that relatively compared to the two-party candidates that I would look golden because the two-party candidates are so hated this year. But what will happen in 4 years if Justin Amash runs? What if a really good, credible libertarian with government experience runs? I mean, wouldn't you want someone like that to support them? I'll have to make that decision later on down the road because this isn't about me. This is about advancing these ideas. And quite frankly, it takes a lot out of you to run for president. I'm still tired from running for president of the United States.
Press 1. To send a voicemail, press 2.
And I got a lot of gray hairs.
Okay, I've sent the goodbye.
All right, I think it's hearing me say something that sounds like 2. So it's like hanging up on it. So I'm sorry if I missed your call, guys. Just keep trying and you'll get through. But the question of whether or not I want to run is one of whether or not I think that I would be the right person for the job at the right time. You know, I thought that this was the right timing for someone like myself.
To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail, press 2.
Hello, who am I speaking with?
Hi, Brendan, a high schooler from Ohio.
Hey, Brendan. Thanks for calling. What's your question?
I've been hearing that we need to decrease our dependency on oil, waste, and stuff like that. Just get out of those countries for a variety of reasons. How do you feel on the issue?
About our oil dependency. All right, I'll answer your question. Thanks very much for calling. Right, so all right, if we're going to get really nerdy here, let's talk about what would be ideal. I mean, obviously, the ideal situation would be that we don't have to rely on fossil fuels at all. I mean, why would you want to be a civilization that has to burn the decayed plant and animal matter from hundreds of thousands of years ago? So theoretically, oil is probably not the most ideal form of energy for us to run our machines. I see you calling Port Lucie, Florida. It keeps buzzing in there. I see your call. I'll try and get to that Port Lucie, Florida call as soon as I can, guys. But I want to answer this question about oil. So the question of oil dependency is one of economics. It's an economic question. It's not just a national security problem because it has become a national security problem, but it's a question of access to resources. And, you know, we actually have had a boom in domestic oil production here in the United States due to fracking. So we're now able to extract more resources than we ever were before. And now we are poised, we're on the path right now to becoming the world's leading energy exporter. And that's because of our current economic model, which relies heavily on fossil fuels. But that's not the ideal situation. If you watch science documentaries at all, and certainly I do, I like to watch like Michio Kaku and watch science documentaries at night. But they talk about the types of civilizations, right? And I believe they classify, there are 4 distinct types of civilizations. There's type 0 civilizations, type 1, type 2, and type 3. And I could pull this up for you guys. Let's see if I can type it up right now. Types of civilizations class 0. And as I understand it, humans on planet Earth right now are living in what we call a class 0 civilization. And it's, okay, here we go. It's called the Kardashev scale. Okay, there's 3 types of civilizations, and then we are 0 essentially. Now, a type 1 civilization is called a planetary civilization, and we are not a type 1 civilization, we're a type 0 civilization. And this is one that can use and store energy which reaches its planet from the neighboring star. Right? A type 2 civilization can harness the energy of the entire star. A type 3 civilization can control energy on the scale of its entire host galaxy. And we are a type 0 civilization, which means that we still get our energy from decaying plant and animal matters. But if we want to solve the problem of fuel dependency, on foreign fuel dependency, you're going to have to get rid of regulations, and you're going to have to get rid of taxes as well as subsidies on energy. You're going to have to let the market decide what the best form of energy is. For all we know, solar could theoretically be the most efficient type of energy. But because the oil manufacturers get such heavy subsidies from the US government, it lowers the price of oil, theoretically, right? For all we know, it could increase the price of oil. Elon Musk actually famously tweeted recently, I see you, Port Lucie, I'm going to take your call now, this saying that he wants to get rid of all subsidies and let them compete, and that's what I think is the best way to do it. All right, Port Lucie, Florida, you finally got through. Who am I speaking with?
You're speaking with Blake, actually lives in San Antonio.
Okay, Blake, well, thanks for calling. What's your question?
Well, I saw a video from yours recently, and I'm sorry I didn't finish it, but you were talking about the flat tax, and I also personally support a flat tax because I think it's fair. So I was just wondering, why do you support it yourself, and what percentage would you have?
Great question. I'll answer that question on the show. All right, so Blake asks about why I support a flat tax as opposed to like a fair tax or an income tax. Well, essentially the reason why I think a flat tax is superior to an income tax or a consumption tax is because it doesn't punish success. Essentially the problem with a progressive income tax is that the more you make, the more you pay. So it's essentially punishing people who are doing a good job at amassing wealth. And that's what liberals and progressives generally like. The reason why I like a flat tax is because everybody, if you want true equality, right, as liberals and socialists and progressives will say that they do, if you want true equality, a flat tax is truly equal. Everybody pays the same rate, but truly it is regressive in the sense that if you are a low-income family, well, you have to pay, you pay a higher percentage of your income on essential goods, things like medical care or food or water or things like that. So it would disproportionately affect people on the lower income levels. However, I think that we would have a larger economic benefit simply because you would have a higher compliance rate. So here's the idea. Right now, the progressive income tax, such as it is, only 27% of people who are required to pay federal income taxes actually pay them. right? And that's because probably a lot of confusion in the system. There are all the loopholes and exceptions that people get, all the write-offs and tax credits, et cetera, right, like Donald. But the flat tax would make it so that there's no exemptions, there are no write-offs, you don't get a tax credit for this or that, like if you have a mortgage or whatever. But the flat tax essentially makes it so that you would just everybody would just pay the same rate. And from what I've read, from most economists that I've read that propose a flat tax, their proposals are around 14.5%. I am not an economist, so I can't say perfectly. And again, I'm not a central planner, so I don't know exactly what would stimulate the economy. But I know that lower taxes would stimulate the economy. And liberals or progressives who are worried that they weren't going to get the tax base, I think they'll get a higher compliance rate because more people would understand how to pay their taxes. It would be simple on one simple form, and we would have probably more revenue. Hello, who am I speaking with? Hello, are you there? Looks like we missed that one. So as I was saying, a flat tax to me is a much more superior form of taxation, even though we all know what taxation is, don't we? Let's see if the next person who calls in knows what the answer to that is. Hello, who am I speaking with? Hello?
Hello.
Hello, who am I speaking with?
Hey, I'm calling. I'm asking. Last night on the debate, they opened right up to the Constitution and the Supreme Court. You said Donald doesn't support gun rights, but you like that he's against abortion. Who do you want support? Who do you want supporting Supreme Court justices? It has to be either of them.
Great question. I'll answer that on the show. So the question is that, if I don't support either one of these two candidates, who do I want to pick Supreme Court justices? Spain actually has gone 300 days without a national government. So what if we just don't elect a president this year and we just all promise to be really good for the next 4 years until we get better candidates? The truth is that I don't want Hillary or Donald to support the Supreme Court. So the thing is that Donald doesn't have any sort of a record of governance so that we can know how he would actually govern if he becomes president of the United States. Look how he is at war with his own party. How is he going to work with Congress, especially the Democrats, when he can't even work with the Republicans? So you're saying, he's got these picks of Supreme Courts. Well, those were handpicked and given to him from the GOP. He doesn't know who these people are. He doesn't know how to properly vet them. There's a big difference between running a business necessarily and running for president of the United States, as I would well know. Hello, who am I speaking with?
Hello, this is Nathan from Wisconsin.
Hey, Nathan.
Can I just ask a question?
Thanks for calling in, Nathan. What's your question?
My question for you is about abortion because I supported you during the primaries against Gary Johnson because you seem like a different type of libertarian, I guess. So I guess where do you stand on the issue?
Sure, I'll answer that question on the show. Thanks for calling in. All right, so the question is abortion. A few years ago, I had a change of heart with abortion. I used to consider myself pro-choice because I thought, as most libertarians do, that you own your life, you own your body, you ought to be able to do with it as you please. But then as I started to work my way through the myriad arguments for and against abortion, I came across some writings by an author who I really enjoy by the name of Christopher Hitchens. And Christopher Hitchens considered himself pro-life, but he was an atheist. And I had never heard the secular arguments for pro-life because as someone who is secular myself, I always thought that abortion, people who believed in pro-life versus pro-choice, the reason why they were pro-life was because of religion. And there are a lot of people who are that way. But I had never heard those specific types of arguments. And then when I started to coalesce my understanding of self-ownership, which is what libertarians believe in, I realized that if the child is a human, and at what point we might be able to argue. We could argue for weeks and weeks over, at what point it becomes a human. But I think that the unborn child is a human being. And so that means that the child is born with the same individual natural rights, or that it comes into existence with the same individual natural rights that we all enjoy. And then the question, of course, is that, well, what about the choice, right? Shouldn't the mother have the choice? It's her body. Well, the child is another body. The child has its own individual life and body, and the choice comes in before you decide to have sex.
To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail, press 2. To accept, press OK. I've sent the caller's voicemail. Good.
Oh, sorry, I lost your call there. So yeah, so we could discuss about when life begins, but at some point you know that it's definitely a human. I mean, even Bill Maher, the progressive liberal, has said, you know, at some point you got to say that is a child, and it's wrong to kill it.
Caller's voicemail. Goodbye.
Not sure why it hangs up on some of you guys, but so I had a change of heart about abortion, and I think that, you know, if humanity wants to thrive, if we want to have a strong civilization, then we shouldn't commit a mass culling of our people. You know, if abortion is good, if it's such a good thing, why is it not good then that it's not mandatory? I have no clue. All right, hello, who am I speaking with?
Cassie Summers?
Hi, Cassie. How are you? I saw you on Twitter, so thanks for following me.
Yeah, no problem. I have had a lot of friends that are very left-leaning, and so I've been really trying to learn more about, like, my political stances, and I've always saw the whole driver's licenses situation, and I was just kind of curious on your take on the whole private businesses aspect.
What do you mean, the private businesses when in regards to what?
Like, you said that they would run the roads.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
And
Who would
so
build the
how
roads? Sure, yeah. Okay, Cassie, sure. I'll answer that question for you on the show. Thanks so much for calling. Who will build the roads? Right, because all right, so this has become a big joke because during the presidential campaign and the final debate, one of the questions that was asked to all of us was, do we believe in driver's licenses? And I said, hell no. But I never got a chance to articulate properly exactly why I didn't think that we needed to have driver's licenses. It's because under the current scheme that we have right now, sure, yeah, we need driver's licenses. But if we had a society where roads were built by private corporations, you may not need a driver's license to drive on those roads, right? So go with me here for just a moment. There are lots of examples of private roads. We have private roads here in the United States. They're called toll roads. We have private roads for people with they live in the backwoods and things, and they have private roads. But if you're wondering how this would work in a larger society, well, you need to look no further than a case in Hawaii, for example, where there was they have constant rain showers and they have roads that get washed out, and sometimes the government cannot go out there and build the roads. So private citizens stepped in and they've built roads for themselves in order so that they can get around on their own islands. Because the thing is that necessity is the mother of invention. That's one thing. This is the out of necessity, will we build a road in order for us to travel? Yes, absolutely, we will do so. And you know, devil's advocate, of course, this happened, of course, during the 1950s when Eisenhower stepped in and used the context of national emergency to say, okay, well, if we ever had a nuclear bomb, then we need to get from city to city, so he built the national highways. But in regards to whether or not people would actually build roads on a larger scale, think about it. If you own a corporation, let's say you own a business, something like a Walmart or some other store or something like that, wouldn't you have an incentive to build a road so that people could so that people could get to your people could get to the marketplace, right? So right now there's no incentive, because if somebody else is going to go ahead and build the roads for you, then you have no incentive to do it yourself. You have no incentive to work with your community in order to maintain the roads. And the government doesn't do that good of a job with building the roads, I'll tell you that much. But I'll get into that more, Cassie, on Twitter, and we'll have a little back and forth on that.
To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail, press 2.
All right, hello, who am I speaking with?
Dustin from California.
Hey, Dustin, thanks for calling in.
Hey, I had a question. How do you explain to somebody who's pro-socialism the difference between, like, Denmark-type socialism and, like, Venezuela-type socialism?
Right, great question. Thanks so much for calling in about that. All right, so the difference between Venezuela-type socialism, the difference between Swedish-type socialism, right? So the question is one of what, you know, we have. So there's a difference between a heterogeneous society and a homogeneous society. Let's just lay that out there, right? So when you look at Sweden, it's a very homogeneous society. It's a very small society, okay? So when you're talking about something, socialism is central planning, right? So central planning is the type of thing where you get a small group of eggheads together, theoretically, and they are going to use tax dollars at a high tax rate in order to plan the city, urban planning, and to plan, make the plan for the nation and to provide health care. So the problem is, and even President Barack Obama actually acknowledged this, because in Iceland, after the financial crisis occurred in Iceland when their banks collapsed, they nationalized their banks. And President Obama said, well, the difference between what they did versus what happened in the United States when we had our financial collapse is that Iceland only had 3 banks. I mean, you have to look at the general population of Sweden. Now, let's just pull this up right now. Let's look at the population of Sweden. Okay, it looks like the population is 9.5 million people in Sweden. Okay, now let's look at the population of Venezuela. 30 million, okay? So 9 million versus 30 million, okay? And then there's the population of the United States. 318.9 million. So, and what Barack Obama said about Iceland when they collapsed and nationalized their banks is the fact that they had 3 banks. Well, the United States has thousands of banks. Right? So the larger and larger society goes, the more difficult it becomes for central planners to manage a nation. And of course, the difference between Swedish socialism and Venezuelan socialism there is the fact that they have a much larger country, and they do have natural resources the same way that Sweden has some natural resources, in the same way that the United States has plentiful natural resources. But the larger the population is, the more heterogeneous the society is, the more difficult it becomes for the planners. So theoretically, if you had, a small society of around 1,000 to 5,000 people, and they chose to voluntarily live under socialism, and they had one central planner who made all the decisions, it might work for a time. Of course, everything breaks down. I mean, we all understand that the larger and larger our plans become, the more difficult it becomes to control. This is why even large corporations, for example, someone who is a manager of a large corporation, generally those corporations don't last for decades, right? Or even restaurants, for example. So it all comes down to the question of central planning. And you could say, oh, maybe the Swedes are better at it, but the Swedes, of course, they are a homogenous society. Venezuela actually has a more heterogeneous society. Now, what's the difference? Well, because of the way tribalism works, because of the way, what you may say, sociology works, you learn this kind of stuff in sociology. If you have a society that is homogenous, people tend to be tribal, and they tend to trust one another more, and they tend to make decisions that would benefit those people in their homogenous group more. But the more heterogeneous you are, and the larger the population are, the less people trust each other and are willing to work together for the common good, quote unquote. So there's a big difference between the populations in terms of homogeneity and heterogeneity in Venezuela and Sweden, as well as with the United States, where we are a multicultural, heterogeneous society, and it's much more difficult to manage with thousands of banks. So central planning could never work in a place like the United States. It doesn't work ultimately because everything usually falls apart. Here we got a call from Delray Beach. Let's see who we got here.
Press 1. To send a voicemail, press 2. Okay. Call from
William?
Hello, who am I speaking with?
Oh, hi. My name is William
Hello.
Fowler.
Hello, William. Thanks for calling.
And I'm from Ohio.
Hey, thanks for calling. What's your question,
Yeah.
William?
All right. My question for you is basically, after you ran for president, have you thought about any other public offices? Because I know the main complaint that I've heard from people in your campaign was that you hadn't had any prior experience before. However, I still supported you regardless. But I just wanted to know if you had any plans in the future for public office.
Thanks very much for asking that question. I appreciate it, and I'll answer on the air. All right, ladies and gentlemen, well, that's the last question. So I don't have any plans for future public office right now. Right now, I'm trying to focus on all of the other libertarians that are running for office. However, I am taking a look at some things here and there. It just depends on what's happening. If there seems to be an opportunity for people like me, then I'm going to go ahead and I think I would take it. But right now, it seems like the best thing for me to do is to keep trying to advance libertarian ideas the way that I'm doing it right now, which I'm very grateful for you all for watching or tuning into our live stream today. I know, Tyler Merzinski, you guys don't want me to go, but I really appreciate this. This is a lot of fun. We'll be doing more call-in shows. I'll probably start doing one a week for you guys so you can call in and ask me anything. This is a lot of fun. Well, I really appreciate you guys tuning in, and of course, don't forget to come back every single day to your home for economic freedom and personal liberty, the Libertarian Republic.